Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this month's edition of Métis Coffee Talk for this Thursday, July 20th, on another beautiful sunny day here. I'm coming to you live, if you're watching right now, this at 7 o'clock in PST time, Vancouver time, in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia at the Federation office on Kingsway. My name is Keith Henry. I'm the president of the BC Métis Federation, and just appreciate everyone watching live or just trying to catch up on Federation or Métis news and issues that are affecting many of us, not only here in British Columbia, but across the country. So as usual, I have guests with me each month when we share this show about initiatives and issues affecting all of us as Métis people here across the province. I want to welcome two guests. First, I'm going to go to Mr. Joe Desjardins, our Director of Research. Joe, welcome to the show again this month.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you, viewers. Nice to be back. And here's some fiddle music from Renee, too.
Well, there you go. So what's it like over at your house there, Joe? Is it hot? It's pretty hot in Vancouver these days.
You bet. We're pretty sweltering on the second floor of a house here.
No air conditioning?
Well, yeah, I do, but you can't hear it if I put it on. So there you go.
You're going a bit of a sharper tone of red. I'm wondering if it's hot over there or something.
Yeah.
And of course, to my left and camera right, I've got Mr. Rene Therian. He's not here from, he's not joining us from Terrace today. Rene, all the way down from Terrace, BC.
All the way down from Terrace, BC. I'm happy to be here.
What's it feel like to be in headquarters, HQ? Well, great to have you at the show. I see you brought your fiddle again. So
I did, yeah.
Well, there's me, you, and Joe. We're a little more in person live. So well, thank you both of you guys. Joe, any words of wisdom before we start this show?
Well, let's do all things Métis, Renee, and get some fiddle going quick, okay?
Well, look, there you go. You got your introduction. All right. So what are you gonna play for us, Renee?
I'm going to play something that I was thinking about. It's called The Fireman's Reel, because there's so many fires in BC. I thought, well, that would be a good tune to start.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Renee. That's called, what is it called?
The Fireman's Reel.
The Fireman's Reel. You bring up these tunes. Every month I hear a different one. I'm like,
that was Don Mester's opening tune.
Well, pretty good. Excellent. What do you think, Joe? Do you think
I loved it, Renee? You keep pulling them out of a hat, don't you?
Yeah, he's always comes with these names of these different tunes, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know. I thought I knew most Métis songs. There you go. I learned something new every time. Anyways, well, thanks, Renee, for being here.
Yep.
We got lots of stuff to cover this evening, so I want to bring us just right into the important stuff right away. And of course, some of the key topics that are happening. Obviously, the Federation has been very public in the last month or so, or the last few weeks, ever since the resolution of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, which has now been adopted by the BC AFN in a different, sort of slightly different iteration, the First Nations Summit. In fact, I don't know if many Métis people know, but even the National Assembly of First Nations, Resolution 33 passed to basically go protest the government of Canada over Métis legislation. Recently, if some of you follow federal politics, there was new pieces of Métis legislation that were brought in Alberta, for Saskatchewan, and Ontario. And the chiefs in Ontario seem to be leading a charge across the country where they take the position that the government of Canada has no right to enter into Métis legislation, until, they are consulted with and they can pre-approve or have some say over whether or not that legislation can move forward. So what started out as an issue in BC is now actually impacting all Métis people in the country. Now, some Métis people will choose to say nothing. Some Métis people will be scared to stand up. As everyone knows at the Federation, we've taken a position that we just don't accept intolerance. And what we would deem as some of that, particularly the Union of BC resolution, because of the language they wrote as hate speech. We feel it's time to tackle this issue. So having said that, most of our members will be very familiar. We have been organizing what we call a Métis Forum. It's an open discussion. It's in Langley next Friday, July 28th, 9 till 5. Registration's at 8. If you get on the agenda, you can see. The challenge we have, though, is it's closed now. We've had such an overwhelming response to attend. So we're providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner with an evening cultural event. There's so many Métis people that in BC that want to be involved in this conversation. It's grown a life of its own, which is was quite shocking. We knew it'd be a big issue, but we had originally planned for a forum of about, give or take, 100 to 120 people max. We're well over 120. We've had to cancel. We've had to shut registration now with the venue size that we've selected. We've signed contracts. We simply just can't move it now at this point. So, it's going to be a very important conversation. It's going to be a very big one. And I know there's representatives from all over the province, but, I'll get into the agenda, but Renee, obviously you have some colleagues coming down with you from Terrace, BC. What's the feelings from Métis leadership in Terrace or people about having this kind of a forum to discuss the recent issues?
Well, most of the people that I've been talking to, they're actually for the forum to find out what can be done, and they're all for it actually. So they're waiting for BCMF to do something about it or try to do something. And apparently, by the sounds of it, that there's quite a few people that already signed in.
Yeah, I will say this to our guests online tonight. I'm sorry if you haven't signed in. We did try and notify people to register. If you have not signed in, we cannot allow you into the forum. I won't be broadcast live due to the sensitive nature of the conversation. The agenda has been shared. I will just bring us onto the agenda here now for everyone online. But we do know that it'll be a number of topics here, and what I will say is what I'm interested to see is we did leave this open. Like the Federation has always been inclusive of all Métis people. Now, whether someone is part of another Métis organization, we've always said we won't discriminate against one group or another for political challenges we might have amongst the leadership of each organization, such as the Métis Nation BC. But just so our online viewers know, we are surprised to see how many MNBC citizens have signed into this, knowing we're the different organization, knowing that they really feel passionate that something has to be done about this ongoing, challenge from all parties, First Nations against Métis people. So, we need to have that forum and that space to talk about that. Joe, I know we know we're going to talk about things that are going to continue to help people understand the context of where we're coming from. You're going to do a presentation on the Pacific Northwest research. What will people hear from you next week that maybe we haven't heard before? Like, where do you intend to help people understand the Métis perspective from the BC Métis Federation?
Thank you, Keith. I'm so excited to be able to be involved in this presentation in the sense that, we talked about, I remember when we first started the Federation, we had a forum as well. And I feel like we've come full circle in a way, but so many events have happened. I think there's a revival of Métis identity, Pacific Northwest Métis identity in this province. And it seems like I talk to Keith, I talk to people seemingly every day, people who have roots here, Indigenous roots, mixed ancestry families and kinship networks right here in the Pacific Northwest. They're searching for their identity. They're searching through family stories, through their family history. Through our research, we know, and this is something that we're going to talk about, the existence of these self-determining mixed ancestry communities is undeniable, and they were distinctive. And this is being proved slowly but surely by diligence and community-based research. And I'm so proud of that. The members of the community-based research team are going to be at the event. And we really want to situate that. We've made a decision at the Federation that we're going to pursue many ways of being Métis. We want to be open to the idea that you can't build an identity by what you oppose. And unfortunately, governments, industry, Métis charter organizations who've worked with governments, they've adopted a one window approach, and that hasn't served Métis people well at the end of the day, because at the core of this seminar, and I'll leave it with this, it asks difficult questions about how do we treat people who are different from us? And when you see national Métis leaders saying making public statements that you are not us, or you see Saskatchewan Métis leaders calling these mixed ancestry communities monkeys and mongrels, this just doesn't, it's disgraceful and it's wrong. And I think more and more Métis people right across the political spectrum, Métis Nation BC, BCMF, self-declared Métis, are wanting to stand up and say there has to be a better way. And you know, these ideas have so, in fact, they've so percolated in the broad narrative of society, they've even impacted First Nations communities. Some political First Nations leaders have come on board with this anti-Métis racism. And what we're proposing at this seminar is a very different way of approaching each other, Keith.
Mhm. Yeah. So Joe, what do you say to people? I'm gonna push you a bit tonight, because I think beyond the platitudes and the concept, you know, we know that there are some within our own Métis community and some in many First Nations that somehow feel that our mixed blood, any reference historically in the Pacific Northwest to mixed blood meant it was actually really First Nation people and they should decide. Like, how do you respond to that? How do you help people understand why those people should be considered Métis, and how do they evolve and form differently? Or is that something we can do?
I think a great question, Keith, and I think it's part of an ongoing dialogue. It's wrong to assume that Métis or these mixed ancestry families and kinship networks and communities, I should add, in the Pacific Northwest are trying to create an identity by appropriating First Nations ancestors. It's wrong to assume that these mixed ancestry families and kinship networks were simply word gangs for the HBC and just passing through. It's wrong to say these people either went native or went white, and then as a result of that, create a nationalist narrative that excludes all manner of people. It's impossible, Keith, and I'll say this to all the members, all the people listening, including MMBC, it's impossible, according to the historical record, what we found, to explain the historical events in the Pacific Northwest through the lens of a Red River Métis nationalism. And we're going to talk about that, Keith. We're at the point, we've evolved to the point as a Métis people where we need to be open to the idea. We're seeing it in the historical record. We're hearing it from people who speak in the oral histories. We're talking about something different. We're talking about vast kinship networks across the borders. We're on both sides of the borders. Historians, academic historians are talking about that. So the tropes that we hear on Twitter and the bylines of public statements that we hear from public officials, they just don't cut it anymore, because the fact these families, they constantly renegotiated their identity. They, you know, I think about my own family. They came to the Pacific Northwest. They came to Millardville. There were many Métis that came before, that were here before. They hid in plain sight. And frankly, that was a strategy for many Métis people in the face of racism, land removals, even, I should add, in the whole of the Pacific Northwest, ethnic cleansing. This didn't mean, Keith, that they had no identity. This didn't mean that they lost their sense of collective identity, even though they were silent. We have to understand that history is contingent. You can't create an identity in an enclave and then pretend that everybody else doesn't exist, or there isn't interdependence in the historical record. There is, and this is something that we're going to increasingly make sure between Métis, First Nations, and settler society. It's not black or white. There's complexity. And we need to understand as Métis people, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, Joe, well said. I'm sure you're giving people a little bit more of a glimpse into that. At 9:10 in the morning, you and your team is going to give an update to the Pacific Northwest Research presentation to help people continue to understand. Like, we're trying to lay the context and the foundation of if we don't demonstrate that, one might argue that the Métis aspirations for Section 35 in BC are dead. I mean, and I think there's a reality to that legal framework, that we need to understand our history and our connection to the Pacific Northwest historically, which I believe that you guys in the team are uncovering it all the time. You know, Renee, we'll go to a song shortly next, but before we do, I did want to ask you, I'm going to bring Renee back into the conversation. Renee, you know, we're going to talk other things during the day. We're going to give a Métis cultural program update, you know, and sort of other things. And we're going to talk a little more about some of these things. But, you know, do you like, what's your take? How can we help Métis people at that forum recognize that we do have a distinct culture? Like, I don't know about you, but how many times have we said on this show or other shows, right, that, you know, I feel like there's like, on one hand, we've got Métis people. I hear it in people. Like, I've never identified I'm Cree Métis, even though I'm Saulteaux and Cree in terms of my indigenous connections. I'm Métis. I'm not Cree and Saulteaux. I'm Métis. I didn't grow up separately. How important is it to you that we continue to help our Métis people understand their separate and distinctiveness in this kind of a forum?
To me, I think we have to, I don't think, I'm not Cree Métis. At home, we spoke the Michif French. And to me, I think it's very important just to be a Métis and to our culture. We have a great culture, our language. And if I was raised the Michif way, so that's the language we spoke at home. But I think it's, if you're Métis, you're Métis.
That's the thing. I just feel like part of our people have had to buy into a narrative that in BC, I never experienced this growing up. We had challenges in Saskatchewan. I have to admit, there was a lot of racism. Being a half breed, we faced it in other ways. But I can't believe in British Columbia, and it's finally materializing itself on the Union of BC Indian Chiefs resolution to me. This notion that Métis isn't really anything. You're just kind of like a dysfunctional spin-off of some sort of First Nation community or families that just you were an outcast and that's the way you were. That's not the way we viewed ourselves growing up. So I just think that I think that we have to help people understand this concept, and that the Pacific Northwest Métis are different than the historic Métis where I'm from in Saskatchewan. That doesn't mean they're not Métis and I'm not Métis. It means that Métis there's different communities of Métis people across the country. And I think what we've been saying at the Federation for years now is we're helping people reconnect with that. And I don't know, I just find it interesting in BC that so many of our own Métis people at time, they dismiss the pride of being Métis in the efforts to concede to somehow the superior First Nation identity. I'm not against First Nation culture. I work with many great First Nation people, but we have a responsibility to our culture too. So I don't know. I'm just saying on the Michif cultural side, I think we need to really continue to amp up that awareness, and and we should be proud of who we are. You know,
I don't think it matters which Michif language you speak.
Yeah.
We're all Métis.
Even on that note, yeah, you said French Michif. We've talked about that on the show many times in past months. There's Cree dialects of Michif. There's all sorts of other Michif, right? I mean, there's different dialects. Like many First Nations have different dialects of language, you know. But I got to be honest. When I hear people speak Cree, that's not Métis language. That's Cree. That's a First Nations Cree dialect. Some communities accepted it. Okay, that's fine, but that's Cree. It's not Michif to me.
Yes,
But I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying we should be honest and authentic about what it is we are. Because in Saskatchewan, we had the same debates for years. Like my family, where we were on Prince Albert and St. Louis and Batoche, it was all French Michif. But then when I went and met the Métis in northwest or northeast Saskatchewan, it was mostly different dialects of Cree. And they would say that's Michif, and that's the true Michif. And I'd be like, actually, no, it's not what I grew up with. So neither one is wrong. They're just different. And that's okay. Like Joe said, that's okay. But we have too many gatekeepers trying to convince one another that can't be that way, you know? Anyways, long story short is you're looking forward to the forum as well?
Oh, definitely. I can't wait till to be there just to learn what other people think and who's going to be there in a good discussion.
Yeah, quite a list of people. Joe, you looking forward to the forum?
You bet. If not just to hear Renee's fiddle music.
Well,
going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to meeting the people, meeting the researchers, and then mingling with people and just talking about Métis culture and identity and enjoying one another's company. It's going to be a wonderful time.
Perfect. Well, Renee, why don't we cut to a song? Let's
Okay.
do one more song and then we'll come back with some other important items, okay?
Okay, I'll play, this tune is Crystal Two-Step.
Great job, Renee. Crystal
you.
Two-Step.
Crystal Two-Step.
Yeah, got a good beat to it. Excellent. Well, I'm following along online. I just want to say good evening to some folks that are listening in tonight. Of course, I see Cindy Wilgosh, our local leader from up in the Thompson, Okanagan area. So good to see you from Clearwater, of course, Cindy. So thanks for being there. And I know you won't be there next week, but you know what? That's okay. You've got lots of community reps that are going to be there, and we appreciate it. Also, Don Woodcock, good to see you online here as always. One of many of our loyal followers that listen along. So it's great to have you on board tonight. I want to let people know if you have any questions, I will do my best to monitor and answer any. But that multitasking is sometimes a bit of a challenge on these shows. So I'll do my best. Now, I don't know if everyone saw just before the show today, we did release the updated new June newsletter. I'm just going to bring it on the screen for us here in a second. So just bear with me for one moment. The July newsletter. So we obviously started with the, speaking about the Métis Forum. And again, I do apologize. I know many members will be disappointed that they can't just show up, but it had to be by registration. If we can accommodate any extra bodies, we will. But right now we are well over capacity. At the capacity of the room was 120, and we're well above that already. So if you haven't registered properly, I'd hate to see you go to Langley to drive out and be disappointed, but it will be at Langley next Friday, Sandman Hotel, and the address is 8828 201 201st Street in Langley, BC. So it is free, but you did have to register. So again, do hope people can let people know that it is sold out. I do want to let also people know that we have made a decision. We won't broadcast this live, but I'm pleased to tell you tonight, if you can't attend, we are making a recording. And after the event's done, if you want to watch it, we will send you a secured link to watch the actual recorded show itself. Now, Renee, we've got some pretty exciting events this weekend.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Well, actually, Joe, you'll be with us this weekend as well, right? So
You bet.
yeah, so we are continuing on with our town hall series that we started. Some of you have been following. We've been all through the province in a few months ago. We are continuing our commitment to getting around the country, or getting around the province, sorry. So we're at Fort St. John with the new Peace Region Métis Community Association, and our friends will be hosting us there this weekend from 10 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. So Renee will be with me, our Director of Research, Joe, and other team members will be giving a thorough update of what's happening with the Federation. So yeah, just want to let people know that that's unfolding in Fort St. John. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. It's at Busybody Enterprises at 105 or 10511 100th Avenue in Fort St. John. That's this obviously in 2 days from now on Saturday. On Sunday, the whole group and the gang is over in Prince George. That's with Piac Lamond, our community organization there. And that is the Prince George Town Hall. And that's from noon till 3 p.m. and that's at the Prince George Elks Community Hall at 663 Douglas Street. So, there's bannock and tea provided, and at Fort St. John, we are providing lunch as well. So, yeah, looking forward to, I think we're gonna get a good turnout, you guys. I don't know, what do you think is gonna happen in these events?
I think so. I think it's, I'm definitely looking forward to meet some of them new members in Fort St. John, and of course Prince George. Having the chance to talk to them again. It's been a while since we've been there. I'm looking forward actually to meet them.
Yeah, Prince George, our president, former well-known elder that's since left us, Rose Bordelon, but her daughter Sean Bordelon is the president there, and we're looking forward to reconnecting with
Yeah.
her. And in Fort St. John, actually, it's Jocelyn Izard and Jacqueline Alderking is and Arlene Labacane. So three well-known local community leaders that have sort of kind of got tired of some of the local politics there, have decided to rebuild a new organization. So we're looking forward to working with them. Joe, any preliminary research things you're doing in these communities?
Well, I think it's exciting to go up to Fort St. John and to Prince George. I'll tell you, I gotta say, in the research that we've done, these places keep coming up in the historical record. So let me tell you, there's Métis people in the historical record in these places. And I think that's really important that Métis understand this and learn about what we're doing in our community-based approach. I encourage, and also we're going to give some updates in terms of some of the things we've been doing to reach out with the archival institutions and some exciting things happening. And we really want to find ways to partner with these communities to be able so that they can control their knowledge and share it and benefit from it, Keith. And we keep repeating the same thing. And I think that's just so incumbent on us to facilitate these kinds of partnerships wherever we go. It's a very different way of approaching knowledge. And I'm so excited to go up and meet folks. Most of all, to meet people and build those relationships is key.
I think so, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we're all, number of us, what time are you flying tomorrow, Joe?
Early bird,
9 a.m. or something, aren't you?
9 a.m. flights, yeah.
Okay, well, we're all in the same flight. We're heading
Pretty
out.
well, yep.
Okay, well, there you go. We'll be all hassling Air Canada people tomorrow morning, I guess. But looking forward to our members, our friends, those watching. If you're watching from those areas, you're invited. It's an open forum. We have actually some very important programs and topics, especially with new industry projects in Fort St. John, that we want to see more community engagement. So anyways, just want to let people know that really we look forward to seeing you there. And also it'll give you some context about what's happening next Friday with the major Métis Forum, about the recent developments of and work we're doing on a legal front with the human rights claim and so forth. But anyways, just skipping through now the newsletter, this is brand new, Renee, and you are our cultural leader on our board of directors. You've got something new to announce today. So what's the announcement?
The announcement, I came in a little early today I met with the Michif team, Michif language team, and to finalize our Michif camp in the beautiful Nass Valley in August the 10th. And we're looking forward, and I'm hoping that'll be just the beginning of a Michif language. Hope there'll be quite a few, and we're looking forward.
What we also want to let people know, so that's great, August 10th, not that far away. We are inviting any Federation member. We've kept, up until now, we worked through our partner communities. But what we've done is we've kept 4 spots available for any Métis person that wants to attend the camp. If you choose to attend the camp, we will pay your travel and accommodations, and we will provide you all the support to be at the event. So, plus I think they get a bit of a wage while they're there even,
Yeah,
don't
to
they?
get $100 a day, yeah.
$100 a day. So this is a special new announcement tonight. We really encourage any Métis person or leaders on here watching, if you have any people that are in another part of the province that aren't maybe connected well with their partner communities, we want to open up to 4 people. So if you're interested, they have to email Jeannie Cardinal ASAP, j.cardinal@bcmétis.com. You can see it right here, and you have to apply. This is only a limit. We can't open it up too far because we know what will happen. We'll have way more people than we can afford to bring. It's 4 spots, and that's it. So you have to be 19 years of age or older to apply, and travel costs are covered, and stipend is provided. So it's August 10th till the
till the 15th.
15th,
Yeah.
15th, sorry,
Yeah.
I thought 16th. August 10th till the 15th, you've got till Monday to apply. If you're interested, j.cardinal@bcmetis.com. And please, members, partners, friends, anyone watching tonight, send it to any Federation member you know, or Métis person you know that wants to attend. We want to, we've made special concession to make this happen, and we'd hate to see this opportunity lost for some people. So, and at the camp, again, we know it's a cult that's, we're trying to help train the trainers, if you will, but any other insights about the camp itself for 5 days?
There'll be a lot of activities in the evening. First of all, the first night we'll have a guest speaker from the Nisga'a First Nation will come. The next night we'll have Alan Sauvé that's going to come and teach how to play some old Métis game in the evening. The third night we'll have some fiddling and some storytelling. So there'll be a lot. And one day we're going to go up to the Nass Valley, looking around at the lava bed and there's a hot pool. We're going to go and visit. So we're
You're having
going
a hot tub.
yeah, that's right. And it's a spring.
Yeah.
It's hot water.
Yeah.
So we're going to have we have lots of food. We got good people that's going to be on hand. And yeah, we're looking forward actually.
Perfect. So again, to apply, they got to email Jeannie Cardinal, right?
And first come, first serve.
It is, yeah. So once we have 4, it's closed. So if anyone's watching tonight, we know there's people in the wings sort of waiting. We haven't promised anyone any spots. It's fully open. If you email Jeannie, I would do it tonight or tomorrow morning. I know this will fill up quickly. So, and again, you're covered, your travel, accommodations, stipend to attend. Well, you know, it's a great opportunity. If you want to learn the Michif language and get immersed for 5 days, this is the way to do it, right?
Exactly. Perfect. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Renee. Just a couple other things. We've got some upcoming coastal conservation events. Our team will be at the Orca Festival on August 2nd over in, down on Manitoba Street in downtown Vancouver. That's from 11 till 4 p.m. And the other, as you can see, the event, the International Coastal Cleanup is coming in September. So that's really important. And I know our team is meeting with some of the coastal conservation folks tonight, and they're doing some other sort of artist design stuff, I guess, Métis dot design, and there's other things going on locally. But yeah, encourage members get involved with the coastal conservation work that we've been leading at the Federation. And then another major event for you, Renee, we've talked about it last month, but let's remind our viewers what's happening in a few weeks.
Okay. Our festival, Skeena River Métis is putting a festival together. A great lineup, great musician, quite a few from Prince George and the locally. And of course, we got Elvis impersonator coming, and we're looking forward to listen to this guy.
Well, isn't Joe online right now? Isn't he here tonight? He's got a whole lot of shaking going on over there. Well, that's great, Renee. So this is, I mean, congratulations, another important event for the Métis community in Terrace with the association with Skeena River Métis Community Association. And so I'm looking forward to it. This is definitely, our board will be up in the area.
That's right.
We'll be up there, meeting on the 17th of August. And of course, a number of us will be sticking around and going to the event after. So I'm super excited about this event. All right. Anything else any other exciting things you want to, how much is it to attend for the weekend? I know there's a cost actually. Let's tell members or anyone that's thinking about going to Terrace or in and around that area at the end
It's $40 for the weekend.
Yep.
$35 if you buy it early. I think the deadline is pretty close, and free parking for the weekend.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it starts on Friday at 2:00. It'll be all day Saturday, and it'll be till 3 on Sunday.
Great. I should have seen here. Cheryl Thomas was talking a moment ago online about the 5 days. Sounds amazing. Well, Cheryl, make sure you apply if you're interested, because those 4 seats will fill. Maybe you and your husband want to come. I don't know. Anyways, I'm just planting some seeds
Right.
to our viewers
Good,
watching
good.
right now. But the Skeena, that's different. And then shortly after that, if people are at the fest, going to Michif, maybe they want to stick around Terrace for a few extra days and go to the, Nass Valley is about an hour away, right? And
That's
then,
about it, yeah.
and then they can come in, maybe they want to stick around for the festival after.
Oh, that would be great if they could. Yeah, would definitely invite anybody that wants to stay back from the Michif camp. I think we could save them some early ticket.
Yeah, yeah. You probably got an inside scoop to get a ticket
that's
with,
right,
with
yeah.
considering you're both.
That's right.
Yeah, I do want to let members know too. We've now created just on a totally different note now, just working on the act dev side. In the newsletter, we are starting to give let people know we've developed a document called the Process for Bid Opportunities with the Federal Government. So we know that the government of Canada has, and what this means, the government of Canada procures tons of services. But the thing is, you have to actually be in their system to get access to procure or get contracts. If you're an independent entrepreneur, this could be anything from selling toilet paper to, regular paper to providing consulting services. Government of Canada procures a ton of services that they don't just directly have in-house with their ministries or the departments. So what Taylor, our industry procurement coordinators, help put together is just a basic process for bid opportunities with the federal government. It's now available. You can click the link through our website. It's now been housed on our website. But we just want to make sure that people have an understanding of that the government of Canada does have a 5% Indigenous initiative to increase but you have to be at least 51% Indigenous owned business. So it can be a Métis owned business, et cetera, et cetera. So we just want to let people know we're creating these tools because there's tremendous economic potential there. I'll have Taylor on the show at a future show, and we'll talk a little bit. Taylor and Brad, actually, Brad is our industry engagement coordinator. Jero, we'll have them both maybe come on next month and talk a little bit more about this tool that we've started to release. So in essence, that's kind of the newsletter in a nutshell. Why don't we stop there for a minute? And Renee, why don't you give us another fiddle tune?
Okay, I'll do.
What are you going to play for us?
I'll play Leather Britches.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Renee. That is we know that's a favorite of many Métis people. Leather Britches, that one I know very well. Over the years, I've had the pleasure of listening to you play it many, many times, and certainly a great song that many Métis people will be familiar with. But anyways, why don't we? I want to bring us back in the show now to talk a little bit about, again about that forum next week. And I think that we know there's a lot of exciting things that are happening with the Federation. We've talked about the cultural opportunities this weekend. We know we're going to be in Fort St. John and Prince George. But I do want to end on this show, the last segment of the show, if I want to call it that. And I want to get your thoughts. I'm going to come back to both Joe and Renee on this. There's a lot has happened since we talked last month on Métis Coffee Talk. Some of you might have seen, we had a press conference in our office in early July. And we are now taking steps to officially file our human rights complaint. It will be filed with the BC Human Rights Tribunal. We've been advised legally that's the process we'll do. And while I won't get into the details of how we're filing it, what I will say is that I do want people to know that we know a lot of First Nations people are not against Métis. We know that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, the whole situation. And what I don't want to get lost in the narrative of what the Federation stands for is that, as leadership here, we could have taken a different approach. We could have sat back and let it all disappear or just ignore it like some organizations have, but we don't think that's in the best interest of Métis people. It just isn't. And I know we talked a bit about this earlier on in the show, but I want members to know that we are finalizing a submission to the BC Human Rights Tribunal. It will be filed this coming week before the forum. And at the forum itself, we will explain, or our legal counsel will explain how we're doing it, the context that we're putting it in, and so forth. What I would ask our people that follow us tonight, because I found it interesting, because I would do a lot of work with many First Nations. I have those that really are sympathetic and understand, and I have those that say, well, you guys don't really have rights. And I don't know if they know what it feels like. And I don't know if many of you saw the recent AFN, they broadcast their national meeting was last week in Halifax. And it was resolution 33. I mentioned it. We will show pieces of that at the forum to help people understand how significant this is becoming. And so this is one step, but there's going to be many others required as far as I can see. So the Federation is going to invest a lot of money into tackling this issue, because we don't think we can allow any group, Indigenous or not, to speak about our Métis people in the context that it was spoke about within this resolution. So while I don't want to have the show take a negative turn, I'm just saying these are things that have happened in a very fast way over the last 2 weeks. And I want our members to know that we are adamant that we are going to see this through regardless of any sort of consequences. So, Renee, it's been a couple of weeks for you now to sort of, you've been on the board. We've tackled some of these issues. How are you feeling now? We've had a couple of weeks of like breathing space and we're getting ready for the forum. What's your take on things like what the Union of BC Indian Chiefs said about Métis people in British Columbia, and how do you think we should best move forward? I guess just some instinctual reaction from you.
It's unfortunate that the Métis have to prove that they have rights. And to me, I think we have no choice but to go to court if we had to. And to me, I think it's unfortunate, because my grandma, she used to tell me, oh, the First Nation, oh, they're our cousin. We were all cousin in them days. I don't know. And today I think I don't know why the First Nation is doing what they're doing.
It's hard for me to understand too. I'm gonna at some point I'm gonna show you a little clip of this. What happened at the AFN last week, because I think education of our Métis people, we need to understand there is a national agenda to debate Métis anything right now. And I want to stop there. Joe, I mean, what's your reaction? I mean, Renee shared some points of how he felt about it. You've had a couple of weeks beyond just sort of our academic. I don't want to hear your academic speak. I want you to speak as a Métis person, how you feel hearing some of those that are reading that statement and understand, sort of feeling what we felt after all of that happened.
I get sad, and hurt and angry, a lot of emotions when I've, been watching on Twitter, and then I hear some of these statements, public statements from First Nations, some First Nations leader that deny the diversity of Métis people in this province. And I really do think that, it's not an academic argument. It's our argument about, are we going to find ways to respect one another and honor each other's histories and each other's differences in ways that we can all move forward, Keith. And I've been talking about mutual recognition. There's a way out of identity politics.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And I think that we need to consider a new approach of Métis, Crown, First Nations relationships in Canada.
Yeah. I find it interesting that First Nations, out of all their issues in the country, and it's not all First Nation, but there's a core group of leaders with First Nations that seem hell-bent on fighting everything Métis. And I think to myself, these are on reserve leaders. Do they not have their own fights to deal with, their own, continuing to clarify their rights, their challenges? And I just want people to think about what it would feel like if you were a Métis person, never mind the Union of BC Indian Chief resolution or the BCFN resolution or the First Nation Summit resolution. I can't believe the maliciousness of the way they talk about our people. And I can't believe in this day and age of reconciliation, they don't think that we should be part of that without consulting them. Like, that's really truly what they talk about. And I'm gonna just pull up a YouTube piece of this, and just give me a second. I just want to show this for our viewers tonight so they understand sort of truly what we're up against. And you have to just forgive this for a second, because it's kind of got to run through its course here with, it's got to show an ad to begin with. But just let me pull this up. I'm just pulling it up now. Sorry, everyone.
Getting further in the legislative process with the implementation legislation for the MNO-Canada Métis Government Recognition and Self-Government Agreement, MNO implementation legislation, until such time as First Nations in Ontario are meaningfully consulted and give their free, prior, and informed consent to any overlapping arrangements in their territories. Just joking. That's why I got the Pepsi. Number 6, direct the AFN to support coordination efforts of a demonstration at Parliament Hill when the House of Commons returns in September 2023 against the MNO implementation legislation. I feel like that needs a round of applause. Just kidding. I will now turn the mic over to my colleague, Weena. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Haley. Yes, a good round of applause. Won't do bad. I'm her biggest fan right now, so because she's very alive and keeps us all alive as well. So that's so good. Thank you, Haley. On that, I'm gonna. Oh, and as you all saw, all the changes made to the previous version has been identified in red. I'm going to turn the floor over now to the mover, and you have up to 5 minutes to speak on this draft resolution number 33. Over to you.
Miigwech, before I start, I just want to say that, you know, when it comes to fighting the government and working together with all of you, I could go all day, all night, all week, all year. But when we fight against each other, it's really exhausting. And it's really good feeling right now to be up here knowing I'm working with you all and we're getting some work done. So I just want to say that.
I just want to point out some obvious, like personal, I have a hard time watching this, that First Nation leaders in a public forum are cheering fighting Métis rights, and First Nation leaders think it's okay that somehow our rights, you know, that going to the government and fighting it is okay. Like I can't believe it. And just so you know, they spent an hour talking about this. It's resolution 33, and I'll share another clip from a gentleman from BC, a chief from BC, who I've personally known, and to listen to him speak to the delegates is really shocking to me.
Tapush Wahyu Breaker, proxy for Chief Gillette from Cayucot, Chepesit. British Columbia is named in the first, therefore be it resolved. So I'm assuming that they're part of this this motion. In British Columbia, we have 3 problems not covered by the motion that I can see. Firstly, the Government of Canada gave the Métis a very large grant to look at assessment in the offshore and impacts in the offshore, and they have no offshore rights. They never arrived until after the Europeans arrived. So I don't know why they're getting the grant. It should go to the First Nations, who are the title and rights holders to the seabed and the resources in the sea. So I would ask that number 5 be amended with an additional sentence that the interim national chief demand that Canada and all the provincial governments cease all grants to the Métis in respect of resources or rights of the First Nations. And there's 2 more. Do you want to deal with the one first, or should I mention the other 2?
We will deal with the first one. So you said it's an addition at paragraph 5 to add after demand that the Government of Canada and all provinces and territories.
Sure, throw in the territories.
Why not? It doesn't cost much more. So, okay. Resolution committee is putting the wording on the screen. And so are you okay with that first addition? Does it capture your proposed amendment?
This was for grants, not, I don't think it's covered up there. I was going to add a sentence that says the interim national chief demand that Canada and all the provinces and territories cease providing grants to the Métis in respect to First Nation rights and title matters.
Okay, Chief, what I will want, I would invite you to please speak with the resolution committee. We'll deal with that after. Maybe give all your amendment, proposed amendment, and we'll come back and we'll deal with that more quickly, I think. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to deal with all three amendments?
Is it
now?
all three in the same?
No, they're all
First, no.
different.
Okay, so no, I'm going to invite you to speak on the second one in your time limit.
The second one is that the Métis are going to the funding agencies such as school boards and demanding money for their children. I got no problem with that, but only after the First Nations have received sufficient funding. They're immigrants to British Columbia, so I don't know why they're getting preferential treatment over the First Nations. My First Nation has, and other First Nations in BC have demands for education dollars as well.
If you can please specify where this proposed amendment would go.
Where is it?
Yes. Yeah.
It may have to be a number 7. I don't see it covered in any of the sections here.
It
It may have to be a number 7 and therefore be it resolved. I don't see it covered by anything there.
Okay. So on that, same
Okay.
answer.
Yep.
Okay.
The last-
So you have the reminder of your time for the last proposed amendment?
The last one, Madam Chair, is that the Métis get substantial grants from industry to assess, for instance, pipeline impacts on their way of life. They have no Aboriginal rights or title in British Columbia. So where it says that the national chief is, or the AFN is going to get, or begin, where is it? Advocacy in number 2, I want to make sure that that includes advocacy with companies. The Métis are giving the companies a line, and they're getting substantial grants from them. I want that to stop. It should be the title and rights holders that get it.
You're almost asking to remove BC from this draft resolution. So
That's the last one.
we will we'll wait for wording from proposed wording from for these 3 proposed amendments. So thank you, Chief. Don't go too far because we'll come back to you. On the Zoom line, there's no raise hand and no one on the microphone number 1. Going back to microphone number 2.
Do you want to say something? Sure. Yeah. I'm giving my time for a second here.
Okay.
Chief
King?
Wilfred King, Gulby First Nation. I think the
And I want to just show one more clip from another gentleman from British Columbia, with another community, Cleoquiet, that's Northern Vancouver Island, just so everyone understands who the last speaker was. And I just want to share one more clip of specific BC chiefs that were speaking at this event.
It will be closed for that revised draft resolution number 33. Over to you, microphone number 3, please.
Byron Lewis, Chief Lee Okanagan Band, and I'd like to ask for a friendly amendment on H, and where it says prior to political efforts. I think we need to also put in there prior to political and legal efforts to prevent Métis from interfering First Nations territory. There was a Williston decision in British Columbia that was heard at the BC Supreme Court, and it was where Métis were trying to prove that they had Aboriginal title in our territory, which is in Falkland, and they failed. But there's some really disturbing findings in there that we as the Okanagan Nation tried to intervene and provide evidence of that courts had ruled, since it was a Métis trying to secure rights in that particular area, that we could not intervene in there. And if there's any type of additions to our information that would be provided, it would have to be at the request of the province to prove that we had existing rights in there. And you would never have the provincial government making that request because it proves our right in those areas. So it's really important that people understand what actually happened in the Williston case and why it's relevant in there to put in there is the political and legal efforts.
Thank you, Chief Louis.
I just want people tonight to have a flavor of the kind of challenges we face. I just, there's so many inaccuracies with what those chiefs are saying about the actual facts. Williston was not about title. It was about a Métis person in Falkland, and I was there at the time. I helped with the case. I know exactly what happened in 2005, 2006. The case was lost because the courts agreed he was Métis. The problem was Mr. Williston at the time, the narrowing of Métis rights for him for his right to harvest without a license. It was just harvesting deer to feed his family. That's what it was. And First Nations fought our people that, even though they were out of their traditional area, didn't want to support. They actually went to the courts and tried to intervene. And so we are up against some challenge. So that it wasn't a title case. The problem is if you say that as a political leader of a First Nation in BC to a room of 600 or so chiefs, everyone gets misinformed and no one corrects it. And that was one example. The other gentleman, Mr. Breaker, talking about we get all these substantial grants and substantial this and substantial that, it goes to show me the level of incompetence he has. Those First Nations are getting so much support for those programs. Métis fought for their place because we have a right to be consulted, and that is our policy position. Section 35 also obliges governments to ensure that they're not impacting the Métis traditional way of living or whatever. They're right about that. But what he's trying to give this narrative in front of all the chiefs that somehow the Métis are getting all this money. Let me put this in the context for all of you tonight. This is just one example of there's so many of these. And I'll come back to the point of education he made, which really frustrates me. But when he talks about we get all this economic benefits, the truth on Trans Mountain, which has been a divisive project in British Columbia from day one, is over $4 billion of economic opportunity has gone to the First Nation communities in Alberta and BC. Less than 100 million has gone to the Métis people. Put that into perspective, less than 1%. And they're still fighting us. They are saying we don't have the right to benefit from those jobs and that we can't earn our procurement opportunities. But on the same notion, those same First Nation leaders have no problem with non-Indigenous partners and municipalities and everyone else being beneficiaries. They don't complain about that. But the second the Métis put our hand up and we want to be meaningful partners because we're listed in the Constitution, they're fighting us. I just think that is I'm sorry, but I think it's a disgusting display of judgment by some First Nations. I've worked with many First Nations. I've dedicated my life working with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. And to see that come out of that conversation just happened a week ago. And it's a snowball effect, started with these ridiculous resolutions in BC. So now, for some reason, they feel they need to fight the Métis. I do not understand this fight anymore. So this is a very passionate, this forum will bring to light more of this. We will show more of this, set the context for this, talk about our legal angle on this. To me, that in itself is a hate speech, but that in itself is poor judgment. The Union of BC Indian Chief resolution is because of the way they described us as colonizers and some degenerates. I just don't accept that. And I hope all members and people watching tonight come to understand this narrative. Like this isn't hitting the media. The media doesn't want to touch this. And the last thing on that, I will say that when he talks about education, our kids don't deserve a right to cultural education before First Nations when our kids are in those schools. So let me get this straight. So my son, and it happened to him, so I know it happens all the time. There's extra money set aside for any school district in BC, roughly 60 of them. We all know the story. They sign these enhancement agreements. they get an extra, whatever, $1,200-$1,300 per kid. The Ministry of Education provides that school district and that school specifically with an extra $1,200-$1,300. You're telling me, even though my kid is enabling that money, that should all go to First Nations, because that is how they feel. That is exactly how they feel. They don't want to make sure that my son's cultural education, because my son got taught Tsleil-Waututh stuff, and I'm not against Tsleil-Waututh, but that's not what I asked for. They don't have a right to dictate for our kids. So next week is going to be a passionate day for sure. And yeah, it makes me sick to watch that stuff, to be honest with you. It really, I know a lot of our Métis people want to ignore that. We can't. As leaders, I urge us that we cannot stand back. Doesn't mean we should create physical fighting or anything like that, but we need to stop this kind of rhetoric because it becomes very contagious. And government wants to pull back everything. They're not only going after BC, they're going after Ontario. They're going after, I didn't play all the clips, but they're going after any Métis legislation now that goes to Canada. So there's now a Métis legislation to honor or to respect Ontario, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. They specifically talk about all three. So that's that. I mean, so we'll be ready to show that at the forum and talk about the bigger issue of what's going on right now. Anyways, sorry guys, I went on a bit of a tirade there. It's a little over time. Joe, any thoughts, final comments on that before we wind the show up?
Oh, yeah, I can't hear what you're saying, Keith, and I think it's an opportunity to talk about, the idea that, like, whether it's First Nations leadership or what have you, we need to understand the history better, the history in the Pacific Northwest. We need to understand the complexity, like I'm talking about, but we also, and the interdependence and the kinship that existed. And I think education is important, capacity building is important. That's what we're doing at the Federation. We're working with all Métis who want to work and learn what it means to be Métis in a way that includes everybody. And it's not a zero-sum game any longer. And I got to say, Keith, there's a long history of dispossession and subjugation and all these things, racialization, everything you've been describing among both Métis and First Nations by all manner of governments in this province. And that story is going to come out at the event next week. And we need to understand, MNBC citizens, Métis, First Nations who are listening, we haven't been well served by successive federal and provincial governments, municipal governments, through their one window approach to Métis identity. The idea that we can continue to recolonize Métis people in and through these processes is simply wrong. And we need to make a stand against it and say, look, there's a better way forward.
Yeah. Renee, any final thoughts for you? I mean, that's a very obviously revealing set of clips. I'm sure you haven't seen that till now. Any reaction to that?
Well, I agree with Joe is saying. We need to do something, and let's start on next weekend and see what happens.
Perfect. Well, guys, thanks for being part of the show. Thank you for being in studio, Renee. And thanks, Joe, for joining us this month for Métis Coffee Talk on this Thursday, July 20th. I want to say good night to everyone and look forward to seeing a number of us, or a number of you in Fort St. John on Saturday and then Prince George on Sunday. And of course, I look forward to seeing a number of you so we can talk face to face and celebrate who we are as Métis at the Forum in Langley next Friday. I think we need to ensure that our people feel secure, safe, and culturally accepted, because we aren't some rogue group of people. We are a real people. So everyone take care, be proud of who you are. I look forward to seeing you either this weekend or next Friday. My name is Keith Henry, president of the BC Métis Federation, and I look forward to talking to you next week or in the coming weeks and next month on the show. Have a good night.